Grace and peace be unto you. Shalom. This is your brother Yehuda. And I just want to do this lesson here. This lesson here, it has been on my mind for some time. So I decided to go ahead and do this lesson. And I hope and pray that this lesson is a blessing for each and every one of you. So with that being said, if you have a Bible, let's go to the book of Zechariah, the prophet Zechariah. And we all know that Zechariah also was a minor prophet, okay, in the Old Covenant or the Old Testament. So this is the book of Zechariah, chapter 12, and I'm going to start at verse 8, okay? It says here, "In that day shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David, and the house of David shall be as God, as the angel of the Lord before them." Verse 9, "And it shall come to pass in that day that I," and this is Christ speaking, the Messiah is speaking through Zechariah. The Messiah is speaking through Zechariah. "And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem." Verse 10, and Christ continues, he says, "And I will pour upon the house of David." Okay, so Christ is showing Zechariah the vision. Okay, but this is the Messiah speaking. The Messiah is speaking. Okay, he is speaking right here. Verse 10. He says here again, "And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the Spirit," Christ says, "the Spirit of grace." He says that I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the Spirit of grace. Okay, the Spirit of grace, not the spirit of Moses, not the spirit of the Mosaic covenant. He did not say, "I will pour out the spirit of the 613 laws of Moses." He says, "I will pour out the spirit of grace and of supplications, and they shall look upon me whom they have pierced." The Messiah says when he is hung on the cross, he said that they shall look upon me. They shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him. Christ said they shall mourn for the Son of Man. They shall mourn for the Son of Man, for him, as one mourneth for his only son, he says, and shall be in. So let's flip over to the next page. So Christ says that they shall mourn for him when he is crucified on the cross. And they shall be in, let's continue to say, to see what he says, and they shall be in bitterness. Okay, Christ says that they shall be in bitterness. Bitterness for him when they see him hanging on the cross, as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. Verse 11, Christ says, in that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem. So he says that when he is hung on the cross, there shall be a great mourning in Jerusalem, as the mourning of Hadad Rimmon in the valley of Megiddon. Verse 12, and the land shall mourn, every family apart, the family of the house of David apart, and their wives apart, the family of the house of Nathan apart, okay, also the family of Nathan apart, and their wives apart. So it says that the family of David shall mourn. Okay, was not Mary from the house of David and Nathan? Okay, Mary was also of the house of Nathan. So Christ is showing Zechariah the vision, and says when he is hung on the cross, he says the family of the house of David apart, and their wives apart, and the family of the house of Nathan apart, and their wives apart. They shall mourn for him. They shall mourn for him. So he says the house of David and the house of Nathan shall mourn for him. Now, with that being said, let's now go get the genealogy of the Messiah. Because he says that the house of David and Nathan, they shall mourn for him. And we know that Mary mourned for the Messiah when he died on the cross. So now let's go get the genealogy. The genealogy of the Messiah. So here we go. It says that King David begot Solomon and Nathan. I just read in Zechariah that the families of David and the families of Nathan will mourn for the Messiah at the cross. So it says Solomon and Nathan. Okay? King David begot Solomon and he begot Nathan. As I just read in Zechariah. Nathan. King Solomon begot Mathan, and Nathan begot Mathat. And then Mathan took Esther to wife, and they begot Jacob. And then Mathan died, and according to the Jewish law, the Hebrew law, when a man dies, his brother or a close kinsman, a cousin, etc., is supposed to take his widow, his wife, and have children with her to keep his name alive. So Mathan died, okay, and Mathat, he took Esther to be his wife to keep Mathan's name alive. But before Mathan died, he had a son with his wife, and they named their son Jacob. So Mathan died, and then Mathat took Esther to be his wife. And then Mathat and Esther had a son named Heli, making Jacob and Heli brothers, blood brothers. Okay? Jacob and Heli both took wives. Now keep in mind, through Esther, Jacob and Heli were brothers. Okay? You can call them half brothers, but they was brothers. They had the same mother and different fathers. And so Jacob and Heli, they both took wives. Okay? And Jacob and his wife, they had two sons, one named Cleophas and the other named Joachim. So Cleophas, he took a wife named Mary, and his brother Joachim, he took a wife named Anne. But it gets more interesting. Watch this here. Heli, who was Jacob's brother, okay, there was half brothers, he died childless. Okay, Heli died having no children. So again, what is the Jewish law, the Hebrew law? When a man dies, childless, and he is married, what is supposed to happen? The brother or a near kinsman, a cousin, etc., they supposed to take his wife. So Heli died having no children. So his brother or half-brother, Jacob, he took his wife. So again, according to the Jewish law, when a brother dies, the other brother is supposed to take his wife to keep his name alive. To keep his name alive. So Jacob took Heli's wife. Now, look what happens next. Jacob and Heli's wife, they had a son together named Joseph. Heli died, okay? Heli died. Jacob took his wife, fulfilling the law as the brother. And then Jacob and Aunt or Heli's wife, they had Joseph. So, because of the death of Heli, Jacob took his wife and they bore a son named Joseph. And according to the Jewish law, it is to keep the dead brother name alive. So, even though Heli was dead, he was considered to be the father of Joseph also, even though Jacob was his biological father. Let me repeat that one more time. Even though Heli was dead, according to the Jewish law, to keep his name alive, Heli was considered to be Joseph's father also, even though he was dead, and Jacob his biological father, by marrying his wife to keep his name alive. This is why also in the book of Luke, dealing with the genealogies, you see the name Heli. You don't see the name Heli in the book of Matthew with the genealogies of the Messiah, but you see the name Heli in the book of Luke. Why? It is because Luke decided to honor Heli. Because Luke, as a Jew, he knew the laws of Moses. He knew once a brother died and had no children, the next brother or the next kinsman was to take his wife and keep his name alive. So folks, Luke only decided to include Heli in the genealogy of the Messiah to honor him. Okay, his name is not mentioned in the book of Matthew in the genealogy, okay, but it is mentioned right here in the book of Luke, chapter 3 and verse 23. So when we read the book of Luke, chapter 3 and verse 23, it says, "And Jesus himself began to be about 30 years of age, being, as was supposed, the son of Joseph, which was the son of Heli." It says that Joseph was the son of Heli, but Heli have died, as I mentioned before. Joseph was the son of Heli also, even though Heli was dead. He was considered to be the son of Heli to keep his name alive. This is why Jacob took Heli's wife and they bore Joseph. This is why you see Heli mentioned as Joseph's father. Okay, Jacob was Joseph's biological father, yes, but Heli also, even though he was dead, was also considered to be Joseph's father, to keep his name alive according to the law of Moses. When a brother dies and have no children, the other brother is supposed to take his wife and marry her, or the next kinsman, and have children with her to keep his name alive. This is why in the book of Luke, you see Heli's name, but in the book of Matthew, you see Jacob's name. You see Heli's name in the book of Luke to honor Heli, to keep his name alive as Joseph's father. And then you see Jacob's name in the book of Matthew as Joseph's father. Either way, Jacob was considered to be his biological father, and Heli also was considered to be his father. Now you understand. Now, let's go back to the genealogy. So, as you see here on the chart, under the Jewish law, the Hebrew law, okay, Jacob was considered to be Joseph's biological father. Okay, and Heli, Joseph's legal father. Okay, Jacob, his biological father, and Heli, even though he was dead, Joseph's legal father. I hope you understand. Then Cleophas and his wife, they bore James the Less, and Simon and Jude, another Joseph, and Salome. And Jehoiakim and his wife Anne, they bore Mary. Okay, they bore Mary. So, but wait, it gets more interesting. Now watch this here. So Jacob and his wife, they bore Joseph, right? And Jacob also had a son named Jehoiakim. And Jehoiakim and his wife Anne, they bore Mary. So Jehoiakim and Joseph was biological brothers. They had the same father, Jacob, making Joseph Mary's uncle. Making Joseph Mary's uncle. Because remember, the Jewish law is to keep the bloodline pure within the family. That's why when you read in the book of Tobit, he told his son Tobias to marry a woman of your own kindred. So again, Jacob bore Joseph, right? He was the biological father of Joseph. And Jacob also bore Jehoiakim. So Jacob bore Joseph and Jehoiakim. And guess who was Mary's father? Jehoiakim. And his wife Anne was Mary's mother, making Joseph Mary's uncle. Making Joseph Mary's uncle. And so Mary married Joseph. Okay, and Mary begot the Messiah through the Holy Spirit. Through the Holy Spirit. So that is the breakdown. Now let's go back to the book of Zechariah. Back inside the book of Zechariah chapter 12. So let's read this again now that we went over the genealogies. It says, and the land shall mourn. When Christ is hung on the cross, the land they shall mourn, every family apart, the family of the house of David apart, and their wives apart, and the family of the house of Nathan, which is David's son. Okay, David bore Solomon and Nathan. Okay, and Nathan, as you saw on the chart in the genealogy. So it says, and the family of the house of Nathan apart, they shall mourn. It says, and their wives apart, and they shall mourn. All these are the families of the Messiah that he descended from. Verse 13, the family of the house of Levi apart, and their wives apart. Because a lot of people don't know that Mary's mother and her father, they were from different tribes. Mary, mother, and she was of the tribe of Levi. This is why it says, and the family of the house of Levi apart. Okay, of Levi, because Anne, Mary's mother Anne, she was of the house of Levi, and Mary's father, Jehoiakim, he was of the house of Judah. Okay, and Joseph and Jehoiakim was brothers, making Joseph Mary's uncle. So basically, Mary's mother, Anne, was a sister-in-law of Joseph, and Joseph was her brother-in-law. Because again, Joseph and Mary's father were brothers. They were brothers. Jehoiakim and Joseph were biological brothers. They had the same father, Jacob. Okay? Jacob. And Jehoiakim's wife, Anne, which was Mary's mother, she was of the house of Levi, the tribe of Levi. That's why it says here, the family of the house of Levi apart, they also was there when the Messiah was crucified, and their wives apart, and the family of Shimi apart, and their wives apart. Now, when you go to 1 Chronicles chapter 6 and 17, I'm not going to go there, but if you go to 1 Chronicles chapter 6 and 17, verse 16, you will see the family of Shimei. Okay? And Shimei, okay, was a son of Gershom, Moses' son. Shimei was a son of Gershom, and Gershom was a son of Moses. So, Mary's bloodline through her mother Anne goes all the way back to Moses, making Christ the Messiah a descendant of Moses and a descendant of David. Let me repeat that one more time. Christ's mother, Anne, her descendants go all the way back to Moses, a Levite, making Christ a descendant of Levi through Mary's mother Anne, and making Christ a descendant of Judah. Also, making him a descendant of Judah also, because Mary's father was of the tribe of Judah, and we take on the pedigree of our father, making Mary a Judahite through her father, but she also had Levitical blood through her system from her mother Anne. Okay? Through her mother Anne. So Christ had the Levitical blood through his system and the Judahite blood flowing through his system, making him the priest, the new high priest of the order of Melchizedek. And one last time, this is why it says, among the families that was at the cross mourning when Christ was being crucified and died, the family of the house of Levi apart, and their wives apart. They was there at the crucifixion. These are Christ's families. These are his descendants. Okay, so if I flip back one more time, let me flip back one more time. Let's flip back and go back here. So when Christ says here, he says, and I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplication, and they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for me. So there you have it. I hope that this lesson was a blessing for everybody. I hope it cleared up some things dealing with the genealogy of the Messiah, etc., and the virgin birth also, etc. And you see now that Joseph was Mary's uncle. Okay, Mary's father, Jehoiakim, and Joseph was brothers. They had the same father, Jacob. And I showed you in the book of Luke that Heli died. So Jacob married his wife and they had Joseph. So this is why the book of Luke mentions Heli as being the father of Joseph, the legal father. But in the book of Matthew, it mentions Jacob as the biological father of Joseph. Either way, they both got it right. It is just Luke decided to honor Heli and mention Heli as the biological father in the genealogies, and Matthew decided to add Jacob. But they both got it right. It is just, again, Luke decided to honor Heli, who have died. Okay? And so when he died, again, Jacob took his wife and they bore Joseph. Okay? And Jacob also bore Jehoiakim, making Jehoiakim and Joseph brothers, making Joseph Mary's uncle. Okay, and Jehoiakim's wife Anne was Mary's mother, and she was of the tribe of Levi. So I hope that this lesson was a blessing and possibly cleared up some things for people. And with that, I say grace and peace. Shalom unto you all. Until next time.